Come, let us explore how non-duality. Let us explore the. Let us explore the non-duality meditation enhances your brain that is inferred in the 18th of 28 passages of the meditation classic Great Garuda in Flight, composed many centuries ago by the great Buddhist reformer Prahe Vajra. The vast, grand, incomparable teaching is an antidote to everything that is small. When equality is established as the object of greatness, it transcends the concepts of higher and lower. When it comes superficially to elitists, there has been animosity between the so-called Hinayana and Mahayana branches. Some say Hinayana is present-day Theravada. Some say it was one of its, it died out a long time ago. But Sturgeon's law reminds us that's weird. Oh, okay. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. When within our brains, we have the anterior cingulate gyrus, which is our seat of empathy, and we have our amygdala, which is the seat of both anxiety and aggression. When we take the amygdala as our guiding star, we are going to be much more rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. This competitiveness, this elitism, indulges our tendencies towards duality, saying our group is better than that group. And in-group, out-group dichotomy typically ends badly. Let's continue with this morning's opening text. So there is a difference, though, between groups, between objects, between flavors. There's an object between brown objects. There's a big difference between dog droppings and chocolate. If we cannot tell the difference, it's going to affect our breath. So how do we sanely practice non-duality? Like all confusing things in the world of meditation, it is easily dispelled with a rudimentary knowledge of neuroscience. We cannot transcend duality by relying on the front of our brain, by relying on our medial or dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively focus or actively analyze. We cannot think our way or believe our way out of the jungle of duality. Overworking the front of our brain will cause us to present with symptoms of depression, no less trigger our amygdala, the seat, once again, of cowardice, crankiness, competition, and cruelty. Fortunately, neither the amygdala nor the prefrontal cortex constitute the entirety of our central nervous system. Consider the lowly spinal cord, thought of as the nexus of our autonomic nervous system. Every time we breathe in, we've evolved to automatically access the middle part of our spinal cord, described as the root of our sympathetic nervous system, which has evolved to help us to notice in a very special way. To help us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which is the opposite of the rigidity of focus. We have evolved, therefore, to notice mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. We have evolved to not to pick and choose our experience like turning channels on a television set, but rather to be completely vulnerable to whatever comes up, whether that which comes up is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. Now you might say, dude, it sounds like those are dualities. Aren't we supposed to transcend them? That's where things get interesting. Where our transcendence of duality is not literal, but remedial. So for instance, there are people who say, if you're anxious, the remedy is peace. If you're angry, the remedy is love. Well, that's a dualistic approach, a remedially dualistic approach. To understand a remedially non-dualistic approach, we first have to ask the question, what do we do with all these things that we notice? Every time we exhale, we've evolved to automatically access the end bits of our spinal cord, known as the parasympathetic aspect, or the nexus of our parasympathetic nervous system. Fight and flight and rest and digest is the fancy way of putting it. But this parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. At least until our next inhalation, and then the cycle begins afresh. So this is not a linear process. It's a circular one. And the questions we go through life is simple. Are we going to actively compete against it or passively cooperate with it? It's just that simple. Enlightenment is simply forging a habit of sustainably cooperating with our autonomic nervous system. Let's talk about figures of speech. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel as non-graspable as a vast empty void. Now, a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. We therefore have to ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion, the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, feels non-graspable to the hand. And so we see that emptiness or voidness are just metaphors for the fleeting experience of letting go that happens during our exhalation. What has this to do with non-duality? Remember, we're talking about remedial non-duality. Remedial non-duality does not mean non-duality for idiots. It means having a non-dual aspect to our need to remedy life, the universe, and everything. And here's how that works. The essence of mindfulness is simply noticing mind's antics. The most sustainable way to do that is to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb watch every time we feel our chest swell as we inhale. Meditation is nothing more than relaxing into the illusion of mind's fleeting non-graspability. The most sustainable way to practice it is simply to silently and mentally recite the one-syllable verb rest each time we feel our chest sink as we exhale. But how does this factor into non-duality? Simple. Whatever we notice, we watch and rest. Whether it is beautiful or ugly, melodious or discordant, pleasurable or painful, flavorful or delicious or disgusting, fragrant or foul, whether it is external or internal, physical or mental, pleasurable or painful, interesting or boring, glorious or grotesque. The antidote is the same. Notice and relax. That's remedial non-duality. That is the spiritual panacea. Allow me to elaborate. Those who take the amygdala as their guiding star, those who are rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, insist that enlightenment is difficult and unlikely, and to be accomplished requires a great ocean of time, more than just one human life span, more than even a universal lifespan. Those who take their anterior cingulate gyrus as their guiding star, who take empathy as their guiding star, who are flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, kind, say no. We don't have to chase a gradual enlightenment. Sudden enlightenment is at hand. Perhaps that is why the Buddha taught in the second to the final passage of his discourse on the four bases of mindfulness that one could master his path in as little as 7 days. That's an audacious claim. How does that work? What if enlightenment was simply the spontaneous, habitual, easy, and effective practice of the Buddha's Eightfold Path? You could still say, hey, man, that's still 8 things. That's like juggling. How do you do that? Simple. This is going to blow your mind. Simply by mastering mindfulness and meditation, perhaps once every 12 hours or so. The remaining 6 folds of the path take care of themselves. We can't help but notice change. change in the seasons, change in the cycles of the moon, change in the rising and the setting of the sun, change in the swelling and the sinking of our chest, change in perception, emotion, intention, thoughts, memory, and imaginings. Yes, memories change. It's called confabulation. Look into it. So change becomes something that we involuntarily notice. We don't have to chase it. We don't need a PhD. We don't need to believe in it. It's there, all around us, like a doggy following us home from school. The more we practice, the barometer of our practice, if we practice active concentration and active contemplation, we get more cranky and cowardly. However, when we practice mindfulness and meditation in harmony with our autonomic nervous system, we can't help but experience greater kindness of intention, kindness of communication, kindness of conduct, and kindness of commerce. The more we play with mindfulness and meditation, the more our choices, utterances, and deeds will flow not from calculating contrivance, not from wild scatteredness, but from a centered spontaneity that is the perfection of effort, which is effortless effort. All this happens as a natural byproduct of applying the universal antidote of mindfulness and meditation. This is the key to remedial non-duality. This is the key to being the happy, healthy, well-adjusted person that our dog already thinks we are. Having concluded the opening lesson for this morning's live stream, we can now shift gears. It is Qui-Gon Tuesday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. Let's see. This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this morning's live stream, let's sit in mindfulness and meditation. Now, whoops, I forgot to set the timer. Don't I feel silly? If you, like me, are prone to arthritis, you may wish to gently adjust your legs every 15 minutes or so. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions about every 5 minutes or so. If you are prone to arthritis, you may wish to gently adjust your legs every 15 minutes or so. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window, for I tend to check for questions about once every 5 minutes or so. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 10 and 2/3 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's evening meditation class and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.